Welcome everyone to this discussion and demonstration around gaining powerful insights into your organization. With me today is Lucy. She's in the background and she's going to be looking after any comments or any questions that you might have. So please feel free to put them into the chat as we go. And I can see that it's already been very well used. So apologies again for that. Many people believe that an HR solution is just an extension of what the old employee personnel records used to be sitting in a filing cabinet. And today we're going to look at dispelling that, what is actually quite far from the truth in regards to what modern solutions do provide now for the HR team and for the wider business. So we're going to be looking at some of the key areas that manage the data out aspect. You know, it's great being able to store the data, and we know that many solutions handle that in the same or similar way. But the power comes when we start looking at what we actually do with that data. And this is what today's session is going to cover. So if we have a look at things like dashboard management. So dashboard management in its entirety is all about looking after the front door to your employees. And if we move on to the next slide, we'll be able to have a quick look at what's going on in that world. Okay, let me just see if I can move. There we go. So the principle of a dashboard, and there are obviously many different dashboards, from KPIs to performance to industry, etc., and they all have slightly different meanings. But ultimately, what we're talking about here is the ability, through a self-service methodology, for example, to give employees a gateway to ensure that despite whatever their role or responsibility is, they have as much information readily available to them so that they can just jump off and manage their day-to-day activities. And this is all about improving their engagement. This ultimately is about making sure that your employees remain happy, remain engaged, and really look at a solution as a means to being able to complete and work their role effectively, rather than a burden and about, you know, why do I have to go there? I never use it. And how many times do we hear employees go, well, last time I went, can't remember the last time I went in there, or I just use it to book absence. You know, what we aim to do is obviously move away from the transactional side of it to using this as a much better display and management. And we'll be showing how we do that and what that looks like later on. So if we now move on and have a look at different aspects that you can put within solutions. Now, gone are the days where you just put data in and present it to an employee and say, here's your data, please have a look at it and let me know whether or not it's right or not. All solutions now should be providing you the tools and the ability for you to manage a form process management structure. And we label it like that because ultimately that's what we are doing. We're looking after the management of a process, and that can relate to things like workflows. It can be a form begets another form. It can be you, through a dashboard, you give an entryway into somebody engaging with a particular methodology or approach that you want to drive forward. Whether or not that's a new initiative that you're trying to drive out, or whether or not it's your standard types of onboarding, probation, performance improvement plans, etc., whether or not it's about somebody recording a grievance, requesting flexible working hours, it doesn't really matter. The principle is there's no limitation to the principle of I have a form, I have something that I would like my employees, my managers, my senior team, my specific role holders to be able to facilitate and work with. And then what we do is we then look at that solutioning to determine how best to deliver that to that group of individuals. Now, you can see here, this raises lots of different aspects, from building templates to creating digital forms to putting out pulses or surveys, to doing your onboarding and so on. And then it's also about being able to track, manage, and analyze that information, both in regards to what's the uptake. We know that you can deploy a questionnaire, for example, about how happy are everyone, and you might send it to 200 employees. And if you don't know how many of those employees are engaging with the form, then ultimately you can't use the power of it sufficiently to be able to identify whether or not your return rates are where they need to be. If people aren't engaging with an engagement survey, then you've got a problem anyway. So those types of things start telling you different numbers and different aspects. And then, of course, you need to be able to get into the actual data that's been returned. And that could be anonymized data, pure anonymized issues, especially this day and age where we're looking at inclusivity in the workplace and those types of things. Often there's lots of sensitive subject matter that needs to be collated. And often the easiest way to do that is just to send anonymized forms, anonymized surveys out to your employee base, where they know that you can't be able to identify them through their department, their division, by their name, because all of that is obviously secured away, and all you're doing is getting the answers back that you want to what are often, really quite sensitive questions. But of course, you can also do it as a non-anonymized and then capture all of that information, which is where you can start gathering that and then start collating it across the business to determine what's happening in different areas, different departments, different sites, and so on. So we'll cover all of that in a lot more detail, but in principle, the management of the things of form process management is a significant shift in the way that HR solutions provide some of the insightfulness that is required within our day-to-day working. But not everything is in a solution. Even if you create the forms, ask people to put data in, etc., often everyone has their unique elements. We're often trying to capture specific things. And again, part of it is the flexibility to be able to capture and store specific information that you might have that is unique to yourself, that is not part of a standard solution, but you need to be able to do these things yourself. Everything we're talking about here needs to be in your gift. There's no point having a solution that claims to be able to do all of this. And actually what it means is that you've constantly got to go back to the supplier and you've got to say to them, can you build me a form, please? Can you make a change? Can you add me a custom field? Again, the principle of modern day solution is that all of that should be in your gift. It should be able for you to be able to say, right, we've got a new field. We need a new form. We need to be able to build it. Obviously, you still need the supplier support. From us, you would use our support team, and it would be the same wherever you go, whether that be online supporting material, whether it's YouTube videos, or whether it's, a person at the end of the phone. You still need to be able to have the support, but ultimately you need to have the solution that allows you to affect the change at your time, at your pace, and hopefully without any additional cost, because the old model very much was a case of, you need to make a change, that's great, that's £600, please, and of course we know that this day and age that model just doesn't work and really shouldn't be in place. So we'll cover that again in a little bit later. And all of that information, everything that we've just collated and everything we're going to work with within a solution, needs to ultimately lead to your data out. It needs to lead to your insights. it's great having all the forms, all the fields, all of the day-to-day, ease of use getting around. But if you can't analyze intelligently using strong analytics and be able to ensure that you can digitalize that process to provide that real-time data to anyone that needs to see it, your managers, your senior managers, again, people that have roles and responsibilities where they need to maybe see what's going on from a health and safety point of view, for example. All those types of things you hold within your HR solutions. And those HR solutions need to be really strong and really powerful in surfacing that data really quickly so that you move away from being that administrative center where people are coming to you all the time and saying, can you please give me some data on this? Can you run me a report on this? Have we got the latest information? The reality is what we should be doing within solutions these days is providing that big data concept to the end user, to the people that actually need it, that are on the coalface, so that they are able to get hold of that information at their time, under their control, without having to come to that administrative center where there's often a delay. And quite often, not all the information is surfaced correctly first time. So you've got to go through that whole process of, it's not quite what I want. Can you amend it? And it ultimately just is a waste of everyone's time. Whereas the intention and the design within modern solutions now is to ensure that the end user has flexibility and control over that big data so they can manage what that view and experience looks like for themselves as an individual, even though you may well have given them a starting point. So we've looked at the sort of the overall high level discussion points that we're going to have a look at today within the solution. Is there, and at this point, does anyone have any discussion points? Is there anything that we've covered in this that someone would like to make a comment on? Any questions, etc.? Please do put it in the chat, and I'd be more than happy to either arrange a conversation with you afterwards if it's going to be a long discussion, or to address it now. So please feel free to put anything in there. I'll just give a few seconds or so to see if anything comes in. And then what I'll do is I'll drop off and share my screen, and we'll have a look at the solution aspects of how we at Cintra manage the discussion points that we've just been through. It's one thing saying all of this, but of course the proof is in the eating, in as far as being able to show what it can actually be achieved. Okay, so at this stage there's nothing coming in. Please feel free to react at any time, or contact us after this session. We'd be more than happy to have any thoughts or discussions on the subject. Okay, so what we were just talking about there is the management of the dashboard. Please do, if anything happens to that share again, please do put it in there. Lucy, please do let me know straight away, and then we'll just have to try and see what's going on. But what we're talking about is the management of the dashboard, where you've got the individual values. I'm not sure at what point we dropped out, so I'm just going to quickly go back over the discussion point that we had, where we're using each one of these tiles to drive the change, drive the management. Have a look at the forms, for example. So say this could be HR forms, it could be payroll forms. We just do it as a combined, where you can build up your forms and use this to ensure that your employees have just got a single place to arrive at. They can just come into one solution and say, right, I know exactly where I need to come to do any form. And this is where we can look as the business, not just HR. So if you've got payroll forms, finance forms, whether or not you've got training, or it could even be IT forms or anything else like that that you might have currently that is not in a digitalized format, there's no reason why you can't embed them within the self-service solution, so that you're actually ensuring that your employees can come to one place, one jump-off point, and be able to look and manage at what they need to do on a day-to-day basis. So I don't know whether or not you saw the reporting piece, but as a manager, I want to ensure that I'm being given the key initiatives, the key information that I want to work with. So if I have a look at my starters and levers, I look at these within my department. If I am the department head, I will see exactly what's going on all the way down the tree. If I'm HR, I see everything that's going on and so forth. So what this does is it allows you to really quickly surface the information that you have as a manager, as a senior manager, department head, and so on. And what this now starts doing is it allows those managers to get insights into what's going on. Ultimately, this is what this session's about. It's about being able to provide the insights about where your starters are, where your levers, what's going on, what's the trend, what's the analysis, all those types of information. They can use this to better understand the breakup of the individuals. You know, what type of people have we got? What grades are they coming in? Why are people leaving? What is the turnover? You know, these are all the key things that we can now present really simply to an end user and that manager from the dashboard straight through, so they can have all this information to hand. Conscious of time, obviously. So what I'm going to do at this point is explain some of what goes on within the analytics as well. So we mentioned earlier that, you know, the power of the solution is also about providing those insights, providing that information, and removing some of the administration from the central point. So as a manager, I've come in here and I'm looking at something that has been predetermined. And the reality is that this is great, but I want to see the people. So in this particular case, I can click on my little data table and I can now see all the people that are in here that have related to being your starters and your levers within that period. However, I don't like the data that has been presented to me. I want more information. And at this point, I would normally have to go back to the central team and say, that was great, but can I have? I don't want to do that. I want that empowerment as an end user to be able to draw this information out as I would like to see it. So actually, I'm going to put in their gender, I'm going to put their dietary requirements in, and I'm going to put in what their drink preference is. So I can now tailor and control this report based on what I would like this data to see. And this will now sit there until such time as I change it. And if another user comes in, it will always default back to the starting point for them, and they can change it individually. So there's lots of flexibility within the solution for you to be able to analyze it from a central point of view, because these reports, these analytics are available to you as the central team as well as the managers and so on. So if I go back to the dashboard, you can see here that this is where we can use this for jump off points. So for example, if we're using expenses and I want to use this to go and record my expense, I don't want to have to go and think about where is it, where's the shortcut, where is it on my PC, where do I have to go? Again, this is all about just making life really simple. You just come in here and then you use this as a jump off point to whatever third-party solutions you may have. There's no limitation. You can create as many of these as you want and as many variations as you want. Also within the dashboard, it's important to surface the information that you as an employee may have or the manager may have. So you can see here that as an employee, I've got certain tasks to do. I can see that I've got lots of my tasks are overdue. If I use goals and objective management, I can see where I am with my goals. Any training that I've got, any compliance matters, anything that I've got that might have expired, first aid certification, you know, I might be in the accounting team and I might have accounting qualifications, etc., that need to be renewed. You know, it might be DBS checks and all those types of things that you have that you know expire can all sit within a compliance area, easily managed through the individual's qualification area, and you can see exactly what's going on here at any given time using the red, amber, green methodology, the RAG status. Now, that's fine from an employee point of view, because what it does is it ensures that the employee is empowered to look at the tasks, the actions that they're expected to have completed. But also the power needs to be with the manager. So the manager is able, through the dashboard, to be able to see all their individual staff. They can drill down onto them. They can look at their profiles, their job. If you wanted to, they can affect change to job. That's a different conversation for a different day. But what it does is it allows you to empower that manager change methodology from the dashboard to control what they want to do. But importantly, you can see here that I'm a manager of 11 direct reports, and this is what my team looks like in regards to whether or not they are delivering and what is necessary to the business by their completion of the tasks that have been set out for them to do. And you can see here that actually I probably need to go and have a conversation with Bill, because he's got 11 outstanding tasks, 10 of which are overdue. That implies to me that maybe he's not engaged. There's something going on. So I can, take him to one side and just have a conversation with him about why he's not completing some of the things that he needs to do. He can then go off and complete them through his dashboard easily, just by going through the tasks, managing them through. But I will always, as a manager, be able to clearly see whether or not he's maintaining and improving his completion of those tasks, etc. The same is true of your qualifications, the qualified items that you may have, blue card, driving license, anything that you've got in here. You control all of these. These are the important thing here again, is that you have full ownership of everything that's in here. So anything that you need to be able to track where there's an expiration, you can see as it stands, I'm only 58% compliant because I've indicated I've got a lot of stuff in here that needs to be done. And I've actually got a lot of people in here that are overdue, or their particular value has expired. And this allows me very quickly now, as managers and as an admin team, to be able to jump on this. And hopefully it's always in the expiring soon area, not the non-compliant. But of course, we do appreciate that, things are going to slip and they are going to move into and along those boxes. So there's a lot of things there that you can manage from the dashboard. And ultimately, part of this is to give you the power, give you the tools. So when we are in the form design management, and I'll go back into my anti-bullying compliance. So you can see here that we've got a nice little form. This is just something that we would pulse out, send out once a year, because, every year we have to get all our employees, for example, to say that they've watched and agree with the anti-bullying and harassment prevention policy. It's just an example. You could do this for every policy that you've got. You can embed lots of declarations in one pulse or have separate ones. Again, it's all personal preference, but because you can embed videos, all those types of things, it gives you a lot of power to be able to drive that information and that change through. Probably won't run it because I had to change. Yeah, I thought so, because I had to change solution. And you can also put in the electronic signatures again, so that you can use different levels of formality. However, I did say at the beginning of this that the proof is in the eating, in as far as you being able to have the toolkit yourself to do this. And what we're looking at now is the ability for you to say, right, that form's great, but there's a spelling mistake, or I'd like to add another value, or I'd like to do something else. In which case you can very quickly add a field. It's a really simple toolkit that sits over this. If you wanted to edit the information, you can just click on edit and then make any changes that you want to the text, if there was a spelling mistake or anything else like that. So really simple tools, excuse me, for you to be able to look at this. And at any given time, you can control where this form gets distributed to. So this form might go to an individual. It might go to a department head. It doesn't have to go through to that linear approach of line manager, etc. If this form on completion has to go to your health and safety rep, or to HR, or to payroll, then you just route it where it needs to go, so that the right people are seeing the right outcomes of the information that you're trying to gather and capture. Any given time, you can also look at exactly what's gone on with the form. We know that forms change. We know that, things don't stand still. So at any given time, you can look at where things were, what it was. If you make a mistake, if somebody says we prefer the old form, then you can just restore those versions and so on. So nice tools for you to be able to look at controlling the forms. Once you've built the form, it is about making sure that you can distribute those forms to the right places at the right time. So we've already looked at using the dashboard to allow the employees to come to those forms where they want to initiate themselves. But we can also now turn around and start looking at digitalizing the approach to take away the need for you to diarize, to use calendars, etc. So we can see here that, for example, we've got a quarterly performance review. And that quarterly performance review in this particular case is just for the SLT. So this is just going to go to a group that we've determined within the form that it will only go every 3 months to a select group, whereas everyone else will get the quarterly performance assessment, which is designed differently. So you've got lots of flexibility in how you would manage those surveys and manage those controls. And if I quickly jump in to what that looks like, you can see you embed the form that you want to distribute every 3 months, and you can see clearly what's happened in the history of it. So we know that performance reviews change, different questions are asked, the sectors have different requirements on a year-by-year basis often. So all we do is just redesign the form, embed the form within the process, and then you can see a full record of who's interacted with it at any given time. So if I wanted to see who was who engaged with a historical one, you can just come in here, and these are our SLT. So there's only going to be a few people in here, and you can see, not unusually, that some of the SLT decided they weren't going to engage with the form, but Holly has completed hers. So this allows you to very easily surface this information, both as senior team and also from an HR central point of view as well. You've also got the concept of being able to drive your form process management based on an anchor point, based on something happening. The pulses and the surveys are absolutely fine. You can send something on the 1st of January every year. You can send it every 3 months from a start point and so on. But there are certain things like when somebody starts, when somebody leaves, when somebody changes their job role. You never know when that's going to happen. You can't be prescriptive to say, I want to do that every 3 months, because it may not be applicable. So in this particular case, we then switch into workflow management, which then allows you to tie the activity of what you want to do when something happens. So onboarding is a prime example of that. If we have a look, excuse me, if we have a look at a typical onboarding, so this is obviously once somebody's start date hits the system, we know what that date is. And then in this particular case, 21 days before that date arrives, we can start distributing information, distributing those forms to the prospective employee at this particular case. This can also go to IT, it can go to the line manager. We can start distributing these forms to wherever they need to be within the business to ensure that when that person starts, they have the best experience and everything is ready and good to go for them. But it's also not just about managing that pre-side of their arrival. It's what also happens. We know that there is a process that we want our new starters to follow. We want the orientation to be done by the manager. We want somebody in HR to complete the single central register, for example, if you're in education, so you can manage all of these distinctly in regards to who does what as a result of that person starting. You can do surveys. You can manage your probation through here. You do your first month, and it can be a probation that's split employees, managers, and so on. And you build all of these up, and you only ever have to do this once. And once it's done, every time you put a new starter in, it will automatically flow through this onboarding. Now, I say that, but you can create different onboardings for different types of employees. So if you've got a fixed term contractor, a volunteer, an apprentice, then their onboarding experience may be different to that of somebody that is a permanent member of staff, in which case that's absolutely fine. All you do is you just build out a particular workflow that's specific to that requirement. So when you put somebody into a job, you would determine what their work class was. And once we know what work class they are, then the system takes over, digitalizes that process, and ensures that they go down the right route in regards to what their engagement is. So lots of power there within the way that you manage your workflows, which is obviously distinctly different from the way that you would manage your pulses and your surveys. And all of that leads to the creation of a task. Every time a form is distributed, whether or not it's an engagement survey, whether it's probation and so on, it creates a task, which is what we saw on the dashboard earlier. And centrally, you can look at what the situation is with those tasks. You can see in this particular case, right across the business, I've got 132 overdue tasks. I can search, I can narrow it down, I can start looking for individuals or particular initiatives that I'm driving. You can see how many have been issued, what's scheduled, what's coming up, how many have been completed, and so on. So all of that is available for you to be able to easily, at any given time, identify where your business is, where your employees and managers are in regards to what they're trying to achieve. Also, you need to be able to report on the data that sits within the forms that have been submitted. So part of this is just using this to deal with that. Okay, I've distributed lots of forms, but I don't know where I am, what's my return rate, etc. So if I go and have a look at my engagement, so I send this out every 3 months. My latest check-in, I sent this out to 126 employees. Hopefully you can see that. And so far, 33 employees have responded. So I've got a 26% completion rate. This is where you start getting real insights, really valuable information starts coming in regards to what it is that you're driving. Because ultimately, you're asking these questions either because of a mandatory requirement, in which case you want to make sure you have 100% compliance, or as a general engagement exercise, in which case, 26% isn't brilliant, but it's not, you're not going to worry too much about it at this stage if the rest of the people don't complete it, and therefore it just tells its own story. So again, it's different ways of managing different types of information. But within it, we obviously need to start getting a little bit clever about just how do we analyze the data. So yes, we can analyze data where, people are saying they're a 6 on a happiness rating and so on. And we can start breaking down what the relationship is, how many males, females, what business units and so on. But employees are asked to put comments, why are you happy? Why are you not happy? What is your experience? And those types of things. And ultimately, we need a solution to be able to use that intelligence, that analytical intelligence, by using word tables, by using machine learning, where we start looking at the data that is being entered and we start surfacing what some of the most common languages and common trends are. I mean, obviously 18 months, 2 years ago, this would have all been COVID. You wouldn't have seen much else on here. But if I want to have a look at, who said it's a unique perspective? I can start really breaking into different individuals' mindsets, and then just click on my little data table again, and that shows me that it's Joshua that said that. So that gives me an idea of what's going on. But if I like what he's just said, if I'm intrigued by it, then because this is a form, apologies, because this is a form, it allows me to then go straight to the bigger picture of what was actually said within it. So not only can I use that word table to help me identify what's going on, I can then very easily break into the information that supported where that initiative came from and what this person is saying. So lots of really nice things going on from an engagement point of view, and from your ability to manage that form process management. Now, when you create a form, you can create the form with any fields, any information that you want. There's no prescription there. You don't have to build out loads of custom fields, etc., because you're building them within the form. But there are occasions that when you come into an individual, when you look at somebody's profile, you may actually want to store some core data against their job or against the individual, for example. So you can see here, we've got languages. There's a demo field here, and I'll just create another one very quickly that allows you to say, right, we want to capture some real-time data that sits within a record rather than sits within a form that then gets processed. And that's absolutely fine, because all you do is you just come into your settings, look at your custom fields. And at this point, we're just going to add something to a person, and we're going to create a new custom field, and we're just going to call this demo field 2. It's going to be just a text field in this particular case. So again, nice, easy toolkit. You can put tooltips in here. This is where it's going to be. So I'm just going to put it into additional details. You can mark it as sensitive if you want, but I'm just going to create that. This is all just about permissioning. And then when I go back to my profile and I have a look at my additional details, you can see it's immediately there. So all of this, all of the ability for you to create forms, create data fields and everything else is all easily manageable with a really nice user interface over the top of it to ensure that both from your point of view centrally, you don't have to have a coding degree. You know, the idea here is that anyone with the right training should be able to just come in here and design and build the solution to meet the full requirements that you have right across the business. So very simple things that are going on there. And I'm conscious of time, so apologies for the delay in the middle side of it. I'm just going to quickly drop into the analytics side, where we will do the discover. So we know that we can put some initiatives. We know that we can put some links on the dashboard to bring to people's attention some day-to-day activities that we always want them to be cognizant of. But you also need to be able to look at the overall data that sits within the solution. And because we use big data, so we're looking at attrition analysis, for example, we need to understand why people are leaving, what is going on, how can we better manage that? And part of this, again, is using insights. So we're looking here over a 3-month window. We can change this. 3 months isn't enough. I don't really want that to be the case. So I can come in here and I can change my settings so that I can go to my data settings, and I want to look at this over a year. Again, you've got full control of this. So I'm now looking at this as a manager. I can change that to 3 months. I can change that to 2 years. I have that toolkit. So this is now what my attrition looks like over the last year. I can see exactly what's going on. But also, we need to tell a story. It's not often enough just to know why someone's leaving. So, but obviously we surface that. We can say what the turnover type is, where people are leaving from, who the supervisor is of the people that are leaving. But also what we can do is we can look at things like the decision tree. Why are people leaving? So you can see here that actually lots of people on this tree are staying, but you can see here we've now got quite a lot of people that are leaving, and they're leaving because months since last pay package changed. So we know that some people, quite a lot of people, are leaving because we haven't made changes to their salary. And that's obviously one of the real reasons why they may well have gone. We also know that's showing up here. But so you can use these decision trees to start really drawing down on the information as to why people are leaving beyond the normal, put them in a box, put them in a category, and so on. So lots of insightful information, and you can explore analytics. So again, we have the ability to use that analytical intelligence. So we know that there's lots of key information that is presented, gathered together. But ultimately, HR professionals in particular, when they sit in front of the CLT or the board, need to be able to explain what that data is telling you. You know, we're the professionals. We look at this and we understand this, and we think that we understand the trend. But then often we have to explain that trend to people that may not necessarily understand the data in the same way. So what we do is that we use that artificial intelligence to basically start drawing out through that machine learning the real reasons, what insights we've got. These are the real reasons potentially why our people are leaving us. So we draw all of this out, and then you can start using this as part of your board packs, etc., part of your communication, part of your strategy, and it's all there to help support the ability to be insightful of the data that ultimately you've spent all that time building the forms, capturing the people, getting people engaged to come in, use, and digitalize your solutions. So hopefully that has given you a nice insight into what we offer, and also, I guess, really about where industry is moving as far as the modernization of the solutions, moving away from that obviously old filing cabinet methodology to a much more enhanced solution provision. So thank you everyone for listening. Are there any questions or anything at this point that you would like me to address? Okay, so the statutory reporting requirements, will these be built by Cintra centrally? So there are different levels of the nature of this. So when we're talking about things like your gender pay gap, the ethnicity pay gap, etc., those types of things, they reside in the admin center, because ultimately we often need payroll data associated with them. But where there are things like your single central record, anything else like that you may have, possibly your workforce collection, the FE data collection and those types of things, then because we hold the data centrally, allows us to generate those reports, those outputs. So you can either have them centrally built so that you can create them and push them out on a scheduled basis, for example, from the central side of it, from the administrative side, or you can use the common data that sits there with that big data structure. So if your auditors or your inspectors come in, for example, you can just take them to the big data and say, here is the information that you need. It may not be prescriptive to a specific requirement, but it will capture and gather all of the information that is needed. Okay. So if there are no more questions, obviously we will circulate this and reach out to you. So thank you very much for your time and participation today. Apologies for the technical glitches in the middle, and hopefully we'll see you on our next one. Thank you all for attending.